those formats and use that process.
Okay, but in his
Other
case,
things that are written,
did you
it's
respond to this,
important,
Lynn?
huh?
Did you said earlier you
Yes,
you
I have actually asked the Valley CPC, so this is a background check issue. We have actually asked the CPCs and directed new guidelines on what APD considers should be the background stipulations for sitting on a member of this board. Now, it is important to know that the boards have to go through training, which is the Citizens Police Academy, and to do so, you have to go through a background. Now, what we're looking at in the Citizens Police Academy is violent felonies in the last 5 years. That's violent felonies, not just simple felony convictions, violent felonies in the last 5 years. Multiple convictions when it comes to 5 or more, 4 or more in the last 5 years. And then child charges, anything that might do with a child. Anything that might have to do with stalking because you're pertaining to sensitive information, and it would teach you, in essence, how to be a better stalker. We don't ever want to teach that. And those are the stipulations that APD has then given to the boards and is waiting for feedback on the boards from. So it's really to have the members of the councils, we say, here's what we suggest the background requirements would be. You review them, get that feedback, and we can work together as a team to make that happen.
So it's important to note, APD has no control over those boards. They have made a suggestion of what they think will work best, and we're working in partnership with them to facilitate the background checks, things like that.
So what if a citizen has done all that?
So GP, I suggested to Jim that the way this should work is that this is how all of the application processes go. GP has actually passed the background check to go through the Citizens Police Academy and has
you
gone
did
on
the
multiple
academy.
ride-alongs.
Yes.
So prior to your being removed from the Valley CPC,
By
we were
you,
using,
by you.
by
Please
me,
don't interrupt.
we were
Let her
using
finish.
the city HR standards when it came to background checks. And they were much stricter than the standards that I just recommended. So with that, the applicant, when an applicant comes and applies, they're accepted to be either in the Citizens Police Academy or to go on a ride-along, which are the same background requirements. Then I give that application to the board. These board members, completely blind of me, interview that applicant, and then they vote that applicant on or off the board. So that way it takes it away from APD and away from the city to the board's direction.
Do you have an abundance of that?
We don't have an abundance of applicants.
That's
So
what I'm wondering.
anybody interested in applying is welcome to do so, and then it's actually up to the established board of each of the area commands to interview those applicants and to approve those applications.
Selena, all right, you mentioned a group of things that if an individual fell under any of those, then they would not be acceptable. Does this gentleman have any of those that you were talking about? So he would be considered acceptable.
Well, I was sitting on the
That's not our
board, ma'am.
business.
I know all about it. I've heard about you talk many times.
Thank you.
But again, that's not up to APD, it would be up to the members of that board.
Okay.
Is there no record of any meetings that you have with some of these boards that you can just say, hey, look, such and such a day, I spoke to them about that particular problem? That way you don't have that issue following you. Okay, I'm sure it does follow you to other places, and I can't believe that, you know,
I communicated
lack of a
that.
better word, hey, just show me,
Sure.
you know.
So,
What really makes me irritates me is we make the police account for everything as far as their actions are concerned, okay? And yet, then we have people that are speaking to the rest of us, okay? And we can't really ask you something and you be able to show me where you address that situation, or is that situation
so I
going to
have,
continue?
if you'd like it, and I'll make sure you get one as well, GP, I have the recommendation that I've given to the councils and the monitor on our recommendations for the background checks. So I'll leave this over here for anybody that would like to see them, and that has been submitted to the monitor and to the boards.
Great, thank you.
You actually reduced the recommend.
Well, we made the recommendation for reducing it to just the standards that are involved in the Citizens Police Academy and background and ride-alongs, and that was from prior to me coming on board, we were using the city HR standards. So we saw that we wanted to be more inclusive and have limited to what would simply limit you from going on a ride-along or participating in the citizens policing.
For the people who are new to this process, could you just introduce yourself? You're a senior employee, are you a civilian, sworn officer? or
Sure.
what?
I'm sorry, I should have done that at the beginning. Yes, my name is Selena Espinosa. I see a lot of you, so I don't always remember to do that. And I am actually the Communication and Community Outreach Director for the department. We saw that within the settlement agreement, there were many things that fell under community outreach. There's 8, 9 paragraphs, and somebody needs to oversee and be able to help with those.
So
And
you're
so that's
civilian
my
or
role.
sworn?
I'm a civilian.
Thank you.
We had another question.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if we can maybe go ahead and stick to the agenda and table this just till the questions and concerns later, so that we don't get people to where that they don't want to come back to these meetings. Because I know if this had been my first one, I might not want to come back thinking, well, this doesn't stay on topic. Can we finish the topic and then address these again later? Thanks,
So,
Selena.
it's important to note that these the citizens policing councils are written into the settlement agreement. And it's important to look at the settlement agreement as, and I hate to use the reference, but it is the standing document for the department for the rest of the agents for the department. So if we get a new mayor, we get a new chief, whatever might happen in 2 years, that settlement agreement can only be changed by the federal judge. So it can't be changed if a new chief comes in, it can't be changed if a new mayor comes in, only if the federal judge says it can be changed. And the things that we've outlined and agreed to in that settlement agreement and that all the parties have agreed to are long-term standing, new policies and procedures, are things that we want to see forever in the city of Albuquerque. So these community policing councils are something that we want to see forever and to continue to grow in the city of Albuquerque. So that way there's a constant way for community input and community change when it comes to the department. The goal is obviously to help communication between the police. I think we've seen a lot of open communication here, and that hopefully some of those questions that are out there are being addressed. Then to create actionable recommendations, which are then sent to the chief, the things that you want to see happening in the community. If it's that you want another mobile video trailer, if it's that you want to see 700 officers on the street, if it's that you want to see whatever it is that you want to see in your neighborhood, these are the people to bring it to so that it can be brought up to that stepping level of where it could be created. Address community concerns. They're specifically tasked to review policy because they do get a little bit more of that training and going on ride-alongs and through that Citizens Police Academy so that they have a perspective to where, as a person, I've seen this happen in action and maybe I do or I don't agree with it because I've witnessed it myself and tangibly interacted with it from a perspective where that policy recommendation might have just a little bit more meat. And then they would be able to help with anybody that maybe has not witnessed that to be able to really make something substantive of recommendations from the community as well.
I have a question about that, recommendations.
Yes.
Okay, so recommendations get sent to the chief, and how many of these recommendations have been implemented?
So the process hadn't been good about documenting how the recommendations were getting implemented. But we've implemented, I think there have been a total of maybe 14, and at least half of them have been implemented. So I know that we've implemented 3 in the foothills. They were concerned about window tinting on cars. They wanted to see the new look of the police cars where it said protect and serve because that wasn't happening anymore. So that's been added to the new police cars. And they also wanted to see positive releases on officers when they did something good. So when somebody writes a kudos, for then my office, the communication office, to put that out to the media when an officer does something positive. In the Northeast, they recommended that the websites for you can go to www.foothills Area Command or Northeast Area Command, it's on your sheet, that they be beefed up in different ways, and they had some crime data that they wanted specifically put on those websites, and They also recommended, I have to look at them, but about half of them have been implemented.
Is there a list where we can see what recommendations have been made and what recommendations have been implemented?
Yes, so we have just hired Nicole Chavez-Lucero, and I'm going to stand up. And say hi. And Nicole's specific job is going to be better communication with the CPCs. Because prior to that, it was myself, and I not only deal with the community outreach aspect, but also the communications, which is oftentimes the media aspect for the department. And that's a full-time job in itself. So Nicole is now the main CPC point of her point, and she's going to be in charge of a lot of these processes to make them more efficient.
So is
Do you
there a
have a
deadline?
phone number for her so we can contact her?
I do, and it's also on the sheet that she passed out. I don't mind, it's coming, it's coming.
Okay.
It's coming, it's coming.
So-
Excellent.
In case you can't see, my phone number is
Sorry.
768-2420. And my email is N, as in Nicole, Chavez, CHAVEZ, -Lucero, at CABQ.gov.
So is there a timeline when you're gonna actually publish?
So this is
Yes.
for Nicole's first month.
This is my second week with APD. My main focus is going to be community outreach and the CPC. As the gentleman noted earlier, we do need to make our CPC councils a little more diversified. I have noticed that myself. And I will actually be going door to door in the different neighborhoods, going door to door through the businesses, because I really think that it's important to get different aspects from our community members. I think it really does need to be diversified, not just with race, but with ages. So I feel that we need to get the younger generation in there. Even the high schoolers, they can give us some good feedback as far as the youth are concerned, college members, and then the younger parents themselves, as well as the older generation. So I'm really trying to get that beefed up so we can get feedback. I actually have a meeting with the person in charge of our website, because I did see that we need to beef that up as well. Because for me, I like to go to a website, get information, get all the information I can, like a one-stop shop. So we're gonna be beefing up the police council page. I have a meeting on Wednesday, actually. I wanna get all the information for the different CPC councils. I will have the agenda on there. My goal is to get the agenda out at least a week out so people in the community can see. Do I like the topics we're gonna be going over so that I can go to that meeting? I'm gonna have the minutes on there for all of our meetings, at least 2 weeks after the meeting, depending on the mediator, so that we can get all of the minutes if you did miss a meeting or if you were there. And then any feedback. I wanna put a feedback spot on the page so that I can get comments and feedback for suggestions as well.
Okay, go ahead, that's all right.
Nicole, I spent 30-plus years in the automotive business, and when you did that window etching, that is such a critical thing for the cars, because the thieves see that, and it's my opinion, they run away from them cars.
You're right, and that is a big problem that we are having, is people getting their vehicles stolen. So we are doing the vehicle etching, it's the VIN numbers.
And it needs to be promoted
Yes.
even more.
So we're gonna be promoting that. We're gonna be promoting our different crime clinics at the different substations. As an example right now, our Northeast Heights, the Foothills substation, which is on Lomas, which is right next to Manzano, they're actually, this month, they're having a clinic on teen drinking. Matt's gonna be there, so I actually sent the invite to the Manzano football team, soccer teams, the booster club, the principal, because I really think that that would be a great clinic for parents and teens to go to for our students. So things like that, I'm going to be in there trying to get as much involvement because I really feel that that's important. And I know APD really feels like it's important as well, and that's why they brought me on board. So
And you answered to who?
I answer to, Selena is my director.
She's directly under the chief.
Yes.
I fall directly under chief.
And I can go to the chief at any time. I could go to the mayor at any time. And I did let them know all right away that I have no problem speaking up to anybody that I need to when I feel that I need to speak up. So I will definitely be a tool because I am a community member. I have children, I have a family, and it's important to me, and they know this. Thank you.
I think we're gonna take your suggestion, your question of, what recommendations have been done, where are they, et cetera. I think that will generate a new recommendation from us that we actually create a list that's available through the website, so you can go and see very quickly where we are, what recommendations have been made, et cetera. So this is the kind of thing we want the community to bring into us. We'll turn it around into a recommendation, and we'll work with Selena's department or with APD, wherever we need to get that implemented. So thank you for bringing that up, and we'll get working on that.
I think too, it's important to note that we did some training with the CPCs and the federal monitor. A member of his team came in to help the CPCs get further trained because they weren't going and progressing as quickly as we would have liked to have seen. And we don't want to dictate what they are doing. So we needed to bring somebody from the outside in to teach them kind of what's the process look like, how should it go, what are the best ways to gain community concerns. And that needed to be independent kind of training that happened. So that was done in April. So now you're seeing kind of the lifeblood of that, where they're a little bit more functional and that you'll see things get done much more quickly because we have the mechanisms in place to do that. We talked about Nicole. What's next? So APD's all continuous goal is to continue recruiting, including we did a staffing study that says we're allotted for 1,000 officers. Currently, right now, we have 855 officers. Now, that is including that cadet class that you saw just graduate last week. So we had 27 officers who just graduated. That's included in this number. We currently have 33 cadets in our academy, which will graduate in December. So in December, you'll see another 33 added to that 55. And then we are working on the next class and currently have 10 seated. That next class won't begin until after January, but we're working to recruit at least 30. This year, APD will have hired 100 officers, and that's the goal for every year from here on out. Chief has made that his #1 goal is that we must recruit at least 100 officers. Yes, sir?
About cadets, that cadet who reported the 2 officers for wrongdoing, for beating the homeless man, is he a police officer today?
No. Both of those officers, the cadet is, yes, that
He's a
he
police officer
graduated,
today?
and he's a police officer. He was actually the top police officer in his class, and those 2 officers were fired almost immediately. We will continue to work with our community policing councils. With the Mental Health Advisory Committee, we've built really good relationships with the Mental Health Advisory Committee so that they're able to look at all aspects of what we're doing and find different ways that we can work together or work better in our communities. And then also with the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. I think our processes are getting stronger each day and are working a little bit better every single day with that department as well.
Could I recommend that you put in your presentation how many police officers are actually patrolling the streets?
Sure.
You said there were 300, you said there were 410, 412 in the field services. And I think that that's a figure that I'd like to see very strongly that increase.
Put that in. We'll further support the community policing councils and then address concerns identified in the monitor's 3rd report. That is the nice thing about those reports, is they give us a blueprint of what needs to be focused on, right? So the monitor's 1st report was policy lacks definition and it lacks the proper processes. So what are we able to put resources towards? Policy development. This 3rd report says supervision lacks resources. So what do we need to focus on now? Supervision. And we're able to find out what that blueprint needs and where the department is lacking and then put the resources in there. And period, end of sentence, the goal is just to be a better police department every single day. So the things that you guys have addressed tonight, take back tomorrow. Nicole and I will go work on different things. And it's getting better every day, because if we don't hear it, we can't do anything to go from there. Okay, questions? Yes, sir.
Selena, can you say a little bit more about the training, backing up to the training that's been completed with the community problem and community problem-oriented policing? Give us a sense, who went through that, what types of topics, what skills are being built there?
Yep. Every officer went through it, every officer in their department, and it was additional 20 hours, 18 hours. 24 hours? I know it was 3 days, right?
2 days? I think it was 16 hours. Either way, it was 2 days, I'm pretty sure.
2 days worth of training. We
I was
covered
there,
everything. We covered everything to how to, the officers are required to go to at least 2 community meetings every year. Well, some officers aren't as comfortable with that. So how do I open up conversation? How do I talk to people and make sure that I'm garnering the feedback to be able to make something actionable and change in my community? So those types of things were covered. What the demographics of their area and the different areas in Albuquerque look at. We talked about the different cultural sensitivities that people might have. So when you encounter a Sikh, for instance, they have lots of cultural sensitivities that you might not always be familiar with. When they wear their headdresses, they have a knife that's actually in their headdress. And when you asking them to take that headdress off is like asking them to get naked in public. And telling a police officer that so that you don't encounter that in the field, and knowing that that's so sacred to them that you would only do it in a dire circumstances, and you would do it in a place where they were able to feel like a bathroom scenario, where it wasn't like undressing in public. Different religions, different cultures. In the Mexican culture, they actually, in Mexico, you are taught to do police work in between the 2 vehicles. So if you pull over a Mexican national, culturally, it's their understanding that they're supposed to get out of the police car, come towards the police officer, and do business in between the 2 police officers. Well, that's obviously not how we do policing in the United States. But knowing that, well, this person might be from Mexico, and that might be what they're used to. So being able to de-escalate maybe an officer's immediate reaction from that standpoint. So a whole broad burden of those topics that we might see within the community and within Albuquerque, different things that you might see on the streets.
So you had a slide there with all the training. Thanks for the question, by the way. And what I want to know is how much of that training is going to be annual, or it's now going to stick? In other words, this is part of your curriculum when the new officer comes in, that they're going to get all this training. So because when you said it's the first time it's ever been done, that's not exactly a good thing, especially as good as it is for these officers to get that information. How are you changing your training process for a cadet that it's incorporated?
So most of it happens right there in the academy. The use of force was very easy to pull out the old use of force, put in new use of force, and make sure that it's that scenario-based training. The cultural sensitivity is now implemented into the academy and revamped there. But you had to train all the other officers that aren't going through the academy currently. The officers also have to do what we call MOE, which is
Yearly update training, and so it goes on throughout the year. Refreshing. The hardest part, like she said, is training us. The cadets are actually getting the newest and the most updated training. It was training the 800, the rest of us sitting out here who had older dated training.
And officers go through MOE at least every 2 years, and then just as necessary for that policy or for their licensing. Because for tasers, for instance, they have to get relicensed on them yearly. And there's different things that you have to have a licensure, DWI, drug interdiction.
So we're already planning the MOE training starting January 2017. So it'll touch on a lot of the same sort of training, and it'll continue every single year. And if a policy changes significantly, there'll be new training on that as well.
And that's something important. So out of these 6-month reviews, if those policies change or there's training that needs to be supplemented for these 6-month reviews, then it's up to the department to figure out how to implement that training. Whether that's maybe through another classroom scenario and every officer has to go spend a day in the classroom, or if we can do that training through maybe some video interaction or some actual textbook work. It'll just depend on what the policy revision
And the de-escalation, I thought I saw a de-escalation training.
All our training focuses on de-escalation. So everything from use of force to cultural sensitivity to,
Language.
yes, yeah, just the way we talk, tones of voices, right? So that's taught in some of that cultural sensitivity training, because that's our goal across the board. And that has been the focus, that's the reason we have a settlement agreement, is we want to focus now on de-escalation.
So for the DOJ picture, how much mandatory annual training do you do?
Similar, we've always had a significant amount of mandatory training. The topics have rotated, and a lot of that is dictated by the Department of Public Safety in Santa Fe, which is who ultimately certifies all police officers statewide. So your DWI mandatory training, your TASER certifications, domestic violence training is yearly or bi-yearly. So all of this training has been going on my entire career. I've been going to MOEs since I started. The topics and the training stuff that's discussed has changed based on community feedback or, policy changes. But that mandatory training has been happening since I've been in the department.
You all said you had 40 hours of CIT training. Is that going to be mandatory every year, or are you going to?
Well, the basic 40-hour CIT, every officer got that, and that already took place. And now we've started what we call the ECIT program, the Enhanced CIT program, which is going to be an additional level of CIT that's offered to, we're hoping to get 40% roughly of the department ECIT training. And now it won't be yearly updates on the 40 hours.
There won't be?
Yeah, there won't be. Every year we can't do a full 40 hours of CIT. We could do refreshers, of course, but a full 40 hours of CIT, I don't think we could probably.
Is there mandatory refreshers on?
Yeah, there is mandatory refreshers,
For
yes.
the CIT.
And that's for how many hours?
ECIT right now is, I believe, a 2-day block, 1 or 2
I was
days.
gonna say 16 hours, I think that's correct.
How does the police union play into the community, to the court-approved settlement agreement?
They're one of the parties, and Selena talked about that. So before we do any policy, they are one of the parties who has to approve the policy.
So are they advocating for the officers when you do that? I mean,
That's the idea, yeah, they're
So
supposed to be
they're the
advocating.
voice basically for the officers?
Correct, that's correct.
Do the officers have available to them an index of readily interpretation to the extensive interpretations of the SOPs?
What do you mean by interpretations? They have the SOP.
Right, but I mean, you're talking 1,700 pages, 1,800 pages of 3 facets to it. The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department has an immediate index of interpretation for an occurrence. Do you have that available to you?
I'm not familiar with what they have. What I can tell you, sir, is SOPs have actually decreased considerably. They're down to 1 binder. It's no longer 1,700 pages. That was part of the goal and some of the stuff. And I was one of the original SOPRC members, so I know. And all SOPs are available to them through our Power DMS system, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
I'm sorry, your Power DMS
It's
system?
Power DMS. It's a program. It's an online program that all
Database
officers have
management
access to.
Okay, is that available to the public?
No,
No.
Why?
because it's an internal document distribution system. It's what we do so that we push out all of our documents and all employees electronically sign for them instead of having a binder that an officer has to come and sign that they read the particular document. So it's internal.
But all SOPs are available to the public.
Right. That would be a good point.
Yes, you don't get access to the Power DMS, but you do have access to the policies themselves.
And that's because we're putting those working drafts up. We wouldn't want to give a policy and then people get confused on what that policy is when it's not the final one. How confusing is it that we have 2 use of force policies? One that was approved this year and then one that we were operating off of last year. Well, that use of force went through 20, 25 drafts. And if we put that draft out every single time, it would just get confusing and people wouldn't understand what was going on and it would create chaos.
People can look at some of these revisions in the process you just described, correct?
Well, they can submit revisions to us. So we'll take your revisions and that will be part of the process.
So like the CPAOA and the POP, all those boards are public bodies.
The 413 officers, sorry, did I miss of the 413 officers that are in the field, what did you say, you said this in the last meeting, how many officers were you was the target for beefing up the numbers?
So the goal for when we're fully staffed, when we have 1,000 officers, we'd like to see 525.
Okay, and what are you basing the 525 in the field officers on? I mean, you guys do some sort of
Yeah.
computations with
So
the
we
population?
contracted with an outside agency to do a staffing study, and they looked at call volume, types of calls, because some calls take 2 officers, some calls might take 4 officers. So types of calls, times of days when call volume is heavy, all of those factors, how long it takes maybe to do a report for that type of a call out, and so how many hours that officer would be spending on that one call alone, and factors in that way.
Well, given some of the things that have changed nationally as far as like some of the violence and things against officers, has that changed at all, those calculations or that expectation?
No. No. And we'd still like to reach that 1,000 goal by the end of 2017. So we made that a hard goal for the department. We have to have limits and goals and what our expectation is. We expect to be fully staffed by the end of 2017.
Do you know if the command staff feels they, 6 years ago, we had 1,100 police officers. This recent study said we need 1,000, and that's if you eliminate responding to alarms and I think what was it?
Accidents without injuries.
Accident without injuries. I recall very vividly, 6 years ago, the command staff felt that we needed 1,200 officers. The chief has actually said at a city council meeting, he felt we needed upwards to 1,300. Can anybody with APD right now, can you give us an indication what you really think you need?
So I can answer this one, Mr. Dinelli. Alex Weiss did our staffing study, and he's a nationally known expert on this. There are many ways, and if you read the staffing study, you'll see he kind of reviews the ways that you can determine what's the appropriate level of police. You can do it by population. You can do it by what the budget will bear. The more accurate way to do it is exactly the way he did, and that is by calls for service. So it's basically workload and determining how many officers are appropriate for the amount of calls for service. So that's where the 1,000 came from.
Mr. Slauson, that's my whole point. You hit on the very issue I was trying to bring out. The calls for service that those 412 officers did last year was 69,000 priority 1 calls. That's not priority 2s or 3s. And I had a real problem when I read the staffing report because it does not talk about caseloads. Felony investigation caseloads, and let alone DWI. So what you have is 410 police officers in the field taking 69,000 priority 1 calls. I, for the life of me, cannot understand how you can even recommend 500. I think we should be at 600 or 650.
I think we have to get to 1,000 first, right? We get to 1,000, see where the resources are, see what call volume looks like, see what calls on the streets look like, see what response times look like, and then we can reevaluate. Nothing here is set in stone except for that settlement agreement, but a plan, a number, any of those things aren't set in stone. So we can be constantly evaluating this and working together as a community to make sure that you have the police department that you want and that you deserve.
But Commander, Mr. Slauson, does anybody want to venture or give it any kind of an opinion what you really think you really need? If you don't want to take issue with Weiss, fine. I'll respect that.
Alexander Weiss has way more experience in exactly what he did for us than I do, and I think any of us, so I would respect his opinion, and a lot of people do. You have a question?
Somewhat related. I'm wondering if we're sufficiently funding the police department to go through all the trainings that you guys are needing to put through, all the staffing that you're being recommended you need. I mean, is the city council funding sufficiently the police department to do all these things that we're expecting you guys to do?
Yes.
Everything that we've asked for.
So it's just a matter of time.
But also, we're being as frugal as we possibly can. We could have brought everybody in on overtime to do the training, but we're not. We're shifting resources. We're trying to get everybody, when the commander and all the other sworn officers went through the training, it was during their regular work hours. So it's things like that where we're trying to limit the cost because we know we do have a limited budget. The administration has been, I think, generous to the point of recognizing our needs when the reports come out, they identify, like Selena was saying, they identify an issue, and we realize, look, this is something that we need to devote resources to. We do it, and the administration has been supportive, and we've been able to fund the things that we've needed to do to this point. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes, we have sufficient funds.
Is attrition still an issue in the department, or is it increasing?
So attrition is always an issue with every police department.
Every business, every company, everyone has attrition.
But I think we've seen the major fallout from the para changes.
Yeah.
So we've seen the major fallout from the para changes.
And
So right now, the attrition that we're going to see, we can kind of account for. So we kind of have a general idea.
And what she's saying is a lot of people, what happened is para recently passed state law where they are not going to give their first cost of living raise for an additional 7 years as opposed to how it used to be. So what you saw a lot of officers retiring at the end of right now in June of this year. So we did have a large attrition rate, and you know it's one of those things. And to kind of to piggyback on what Mr. Pinelli said, I just want to get numbers. And like Selena said, we're putting out as many officers as we can. We're not slowing down on cadets or academies. We're putting out as many as we possibly can every single year. So when we hit the 1,000, we'll see. And I think that was a really good answer, what she said. I mean, when we get to 1,000, we got 525 in the field, let's see how we're doing. Let's have you guys come back to us and say, how are we doing?
But you're confident you're gonna hit that 1,000 figure by the end of next year?
That's the goal.
That's the goal. I mean, recruiting's difficult with police departments. You know, first of all, it's a very stringent recruiting process. It's an even more stringent training process. So there's a huge attrition rate at that. And you know, speaking as a commander, I'm not willing to lower those standards, and as you as citizens shouldn't be either. You know, we need to have the best of the best out here. So we're going to lose, you know, a large number. I think they said at the last graduation,
Over 1,500.
1,500 had applied for those positions. So I mean, it's
27.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, that's what I want. I'll take a great 27 over a less than, you know. So as a commander,
And those 27 are right now going through field training. So we could lose 2 or 3 if those field training officers think that they're not up to par. We're not going to say, oh, you graduated the academy, we're welcoming you into the department with open arms.
There's your
We
bullets.
still have, we still have very high standards for how they're supposed to interact, because you're really then watching them interact in the community. Is that officer doing what we expect of them?
Yeah. So, with everything that's going on in the media and how police are being put down everywhere, why would anybody want to do this?
Because they love it, because they want to help people.
My son's a policeman, not here, but
It comes through your heart.
You hear over and over again, every police officer I talk to, yeah.
and my mother says the same thing. I'll be honest with you. She goes, "Are you going to retire soon?"
Yes.
Not yet.
Yes.
But it's a very similar thing, and you know, I think, at least speaking for myself and the people that I joined 17 plus years ago, there was a calling. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about.
Couldn't care about the money, you don't make
but I
it.
still don't make it. Right. They promoted me, I'm still making money. But and it's still the same thing for me. It's just a calling on a different level now. You know, the Northwest is my place now, and I'm going to make the Northwest. You know, we talk about good officers. You better be even a better officer if you want to work for me in the Northwest. So I hold officers to the highest of standards, because that's the standards I hold to myself. Because it is a calling. You know, if you're in it for any other reason than that, then get off my police department.
Well, I realize that all of this is being driven by the settlement agreement. Is there a vision for the department for the future beyond the settlement agreement? I mean, is there any belief that you're going, you know, the department's going to move to community-oriented policing as a philosophy? Is there anything, any discussion of that? Is there any vision for the future? Or is it just get out of the hole of the settlement agreement?
No,
It
so
feels a
that's
bit
why.
reactionary now, doesn't it? Like something happened and then you're reacting to it as opposed to going forward
Yeah.
kind of. So
And I would agree with that. That's why we're making all the new changes, right? So that's why all these changes are coming and all our policies are being revised. But those policies are the Bible of the police department. Like, that doesn't just go away. That policy is enacted and stays there unless a new chief was to come in, and then it's only revised. But it has to go through that process to be revised. And that's why these councils are here, is so that if you saw something that a new administration or a new commander, let's say, if your area command was doing something different that didn't cohere with what you think should be seen in your area command, you bring it to this council, and that's what they're there for. So think the establishment of the CPCs and the continued effort to make sure that they grow and that they're foundational is how you as the community hold the department accountable and ensure that we continue this model of community policing.
One of the things that I wanted to say, and you won't see this in the media, is that there's substantial organizational change going on within the department. All the processes, all the things that we do, there's someone going, like the commander, like all the groups that Selena ran through. They're going, why are we doing that? Is that working? Do people like that? Is that effective? All of those things. We've become very introspective. So we're looking at all of those policies to see if they make sense, all of our processes. Another thing that you won't see is we've devoted a lot of time and money to data collection. Because I'm sure a lot of people work in the private sector. If you don't have good data, you won't make good decisions, no matter how good your heart is or how much you're motivated to do so. So we're investing on the data collection and analysis side so that we do make those good decisions. So we've added a whole layer, probably 6, 8, 10 of data analysts so that we get that good data and we do the analysis and we can make good decisions and put our resources where we need them to be.
That makes a lot of sense, but is there also a culture change going on?
I believe so. I've been with the department for 10 years. The department is
Are you
substantially...
sworn or are you...
I am civilian. So the department is substantially different now than it was in 2006 when I joined. And even 2 years ago, it's substantially different. Based on all of the training, yes, the settlement agreement was the linchpin to kickstart most of this change, but it's really been the department's motivation to get it done. I don't know if you remember, but Dr. Ginger had said in one of his first press conferences, the department is motivated. I've never worked with a department that's been more motivated to get this done. And that's continued almost 2 years later.
And let me tell you, real quick, I want to take something before I ask you questions. You have some really good questions. I'll give you my card, we'll talk more. But of course, a lot of things you're seeing are reactive, and they're reactionary due to the settlement agreement. But on the flip side of that, I would say all substantive change had to start from some reaction somewhere. And I can tell you, to catapult on what Bill was saying, is for 17.5 years, I've seen such a difference. And I watch the videos, to answer your question, sir, of these officers. I review the videos day in and day out of them interacting with citizens, not just on use of force, but on day-to-day contacts. And I have seen such a dynamic culture change from 17 years ago to 10 years ago to 5 years ago. As being I was an officer through all the ranks, obviously commander, I've worked a lot of investigative bureaus, I've worked the streets, I've worked a lot of areas on this department. So I have seen a very definite change. And as a policy writer, which I was in the beginning of this with Mr. Slauson, every policy that I took on and my group took on to write, it wasn't, okay, we just need to write this because DOJ says so. We're going to write this to hit the DOJ paragraphs, but to make substantive, lasting policy. That in 10 years from now, I can't tell how many times we say, okay, in 10 years from now, when all of us are gone, and we're far away from here, we're retired, whatever, we still want this policy to be able to work and function for the officers. So that is happening. I can promise you that. And I'm sorry, did you have a question? Or
Yeah, it was about community incentives. So, when you compare to other cities, as far as officers coming to Albuquerque and wanting to become officers and be trained and be in the police force, does the community have incentives that can entice good officers, good people to come here and live? Is there, for example, it could be anything from, on Wednesday, all officers get free Dunkin' Donuts to, you now get a break on your house, depending on where, do you get a tax break or do you get a cut or something like that on rates on certain things?
We've done different stuff like that in the past. I think the current recruiting incentives, and you may know more than me, is there's an education incentive and there's a cash incentive too, right?
Yeah, we just today of the cash incentive, and it's so new, I'm not even sure what it is.
So for lateral officers, so if you're a police officer in another jurisdiction, and you come to Albuquerque, we'll give you a total of $8,000. The 2,000, and it's meted out based on your accomplishments.
Come back.
So $8,000 for
And that's not
transfer.
included with possibly, that's something separate.
Something, yeah, it's just $8,000. But there's also, they've been looking at, or they do the,
Moving fees,
the moving fees, yeah, that's another reimbursement.
500 in moving.
But also like with city employees, if you're a city employee in good standing for 5 years, I think it's 5 years, you are an exceptional candidate, and that gives you a certain amount of credit towards joining the academy. So we're looking at a lot of these different alternatives to get good people to come. But like the commander was saying, you know, a lot of it comes from within here. You know, people want to come. John was saying that it didn't really matter what, you know, what they paid. We realize it is economic market, so we want to be competitive. But a lot of people are drawn to it, and that's what they want to do.
And across the board, what our recruiting campaign focuses on is cost of living in Albuquerque, because it's relatively cheap comparatively across the nation. The lifestyle that we have here, 360, how many days of sunshine do we have? And the diversity of our community, and then you guys. I mean, we have a very friendly community here in Albuquerque, and so we promote all of those things.
Can you tell me how many of the incentive, 7 years ago, there was the sign-on bonuses, is that still around?
Yes, that's what we just up
And
to
the
date.
tuition, is the tuition,
I'm not sure.
is that gone?
We do incentive, so not only is the academy accredited, so you get 32 credits for graduating the academy, but the city also helps you finish your degree.
Home down payment, is that still around?
Yes.
If you have, one of the key points for the CPCs is to increase recruiting and to increase our bringing in quality officers, quality community members.
That's part of the settlement agreement.
Yeah, so if you've got any ideas that you think would help, we would love to hear them. Anything you have heard from somewhere else, or anything that you think would make an impact for you to make you want to come to Albuquerque and be an officer, we'd love to hear those. Those are the kind of things that we can't brainstorm on our own, and definitely want to hear from the community. What would make a difference?
I have a structural question. I don't understand the relationship between the Police Oversight Board and these, I mean, the Police Oversight Board, as I understand by ordinance, I think, is supposed to spend 50% of its time or something like that on policy. So if I'm a citizen, why am I coming to a council? Why am I not going directly to the Police Oversight Board?
Well, you could do both. The Police Oversight Board interacts a little differently with the department than the CPCs based upon the ordinance. You could do both. When I first got here, I thought that it was important that the CPOA hear what's going on in the CPCs and offer whatever support we could offer as the POB and the CPOA for avenues, for suggestions, for policy, and things like that. So, yes, 51% of the time, the Police Oversight Board is tasked with doing policy, so we are on OPA. We have one board member, we have myself, and we have our data analyst on policy analysis. We have a member on the SOPRC, and we have 2 members on the PPRB, or 3 members on the PPRB, sorry. So the board is active in policy on a weekly basis with those committees, and the Police Oversight Board also has access to the Power DMS system. So when policies come there, they have the ability to come. The board also had to take care of a big backlog of investigations, and they've done that. So now they're shifting toward being more policy-oriented. And as a matter of fact, at the POB meeting this coming Thursday, they're going to go through all of the settlement agreement policies and they're going to assign them amongst the board members for them to review them for best practices, subject matter experts, and things like that, so that they can then bring their input, and we can take things directly to the chief. And, you know, he has to react to whatever the board sends him.
So are you going to be looking at drafts of these policies or just the finals?
We look at the policies all along the chain, all along the path.
But speaking more locally too, from the Northwest standpoint, I would love to have you guys coming to the Northwest CPCs to talk about anything that has to do with what you're seeing in the Northwest. You know, I can't change globally, obviously, but locally, if it doesn't need necessarily be a policy change that needs to be changed, but if you don't like something that's happening globally, I'm not sure if you're a Northwest resident or not, but please come to the CPCs, call me direct, whatever avenue you choose. If it may not necessarily be a wide-scale policy change for the department, but something we can do better here in the Northwest, that's what I would really like to get out of these particular ones. So please, and they are two different entities, but please feel free to use this forum as that, even if it's what you would think of maybe as a minor thing, to me it's not minor if it bothers you.
And we've actually, we've had citizens come to the CPC with concerns about things going on in their community that don't actually pertain to the police department's job. It's something going on with the parks. You know, why is the gate to our park not getting locked on time? Okay, that's not APD, but we have the resources to put you in touch with the people who control those things and make those changes. So, and we've got the officers here, we usually have Selena here. We have the folks, hopefully, who can answer those kinds of questions for you. We had another issue of things going on in the park, and the solution there was quite simple. APD's got their camera, their video camera set up. You know, the commander says, okay, we're going to put it out in this park on these days because we have a problem there. It doesn't have to go to the police oversight board or become a policy. It's an immediate reaction that they can do right here in the Northwest and address that problem for you.
A good way to look at it is the Police Oversight Board is at 25,000 feet looking at the big issues, whereas the CPCs are down in the weeds, working directly with the community in the individual commands. It's just like the commander said. For our CPC, if it's a Northwest specific issue, we're going to be able to get on it right away. Whereas the Police Oversight Board is looking at bigger overarching issues for the most part. It's not saying that the individual CPCs won't touch on those overarching issues also, but in many ways we are much more involved in the immediate commands, the immediate neighborhoods. And that's the majority of our focus.
I just have a question for Director Harness over here. Director, you said that the Police Oversight Board had gotten through all the backlog cases?
The majority of the backlog.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying, because I have 3 cases that have been sitting there for a year and a half.
3 cases.
Yeah, a year and a half.
You know, at one point I would like to sit down with you and ask you what your end game is.
I filed complaints.
You filed complaints.
There are obviously violations of the standard operating procedures, and you've had it for a year and a half, so you answer, you tell me. You tell me.
Okay, we have like 5 seconds left. Is there?
Talk fast.
Yeah, I have a question. Before we leave, I want to call attention to some positives that are on one of the sheets that we all got. I won't read them all, but one that caught my eye is the tactical policies and processes and training have resulted in fewer deaths and injuries. The monitor is impressed with cooperation, professionalism, and commitment of internal affairs, the CPOA and POP personnel. So I hate to leave the meeting without encouraging people to read the positives.
Thank you. Thank you. One more in the back and then we're done. Good? Okay. So the CPC for the Northwest meets the second Monday of every month, right
next meeting.
Do you have the extra sheets on the table?
Yes, and if you need something, just email